Hello there, I'm Moldy, and have you ever wondered what the Mos Eisley Cantina would look like during the era of The Mandalorian? Well, today we're not only going to be switching up the Master Builder series, not UCS, the Master Builders series Mos Eisley Cantina. It's no longer Chalmers, I don't think, as of the time of The Mandalorian. I don't think he would even accept droids, no matter the state of the universe. Definitely not with Wooher around. Thankfully, he's no longer with us by that point, and not with the Mos Eisley. We're also going to be taking a look at the most cursed CMF Star Wars series you could possibly imagine, which actually, funny thing, you did imagine most of the minifigures for this line. But when we moved the shelf full of 500 plus minifigures, I did say we could expand the Clone Wall, and that's exactly what I've started doing already. 3 brand new troopers added to the Clone Wall. We first off got the 212 for the 322nd 322nd helmet, which is definitely a really cool Bomb Squad Phase 2 mock if you do own those two troopers. Though personally, I do prefer the actual Bomb Squad torso and legs with the 322nd helmet, but it's a combination that I didn't have on the wall, so I've added it to fill a gap. We've also got the 201st and the 512th, which is just the 212 501st with their helmets swapped. I thought that would be a really fun addition to add to the wall. Perhaps, footballers, they swap shirts after a game. This is the equivalent. After Umbara, there were two clones that wanted to swap helmets. They've done exactly that. I'm not sure what their names should be. If you have any funny names that are a mix of like a 212 and a 501st clone, let me know down in the comments. But we've got 3 brand new clones on the clone wall, and we're slowly expanding upwards. We've got quite a ways to go as far as clone troopers, so there are going to be a ton more additions this year onto the Clone Wall. But let's go get the Master Builders Mos Eisley. The reason I am doing this entire video is because on a recent stream, we spoke about what if droids are now allowed in the Mos Eisley Canteen, or what if droids are now served here? And that was when we built this in an entire live stream. It only took 4 odd hours. But it turns out someone's built this in 2. That's absolutely crazy. And it got me looking into why droids themselves aren't allowed in the Mos Eisley Cantina at the time of the original trilogy and why they had to wait outside. You're probably thinking it's not their fault, it can't be, and it actually kind of is. You see, when Lucas was creating Mos Eisley, he probably thought it would be a cool thing if droids weren't permitted in the property because, quite simply, they're just droids, and there was quite a distrust of the droids after the Clone Wars. But you might also remember Lucas not having the entirety of the Clone Wars planned at the start, and the Clone Wars were going to be clones versus clones, which is why it's called the Clone Wars. The real reason behind, or at least the canon reason in universe, of why droids aren't permitted inside the Mos Eisley is nothing to do with racism in a galaxy far, far away, and is actually just a copyright issue. You see, in Mos Eisley Cantina, Figurin Dan and their modal nodes performed on this stage here pretty much all the time. I wonder if Max Rebo ever got the chance to perform here. Because it was a live performance, droids had the capability, whether they did or not is a different matter, but all droids could have the capability of recording content which they could play and sell elsewhere. We see this straight away with R2 capturing the message from Princess Leia and repeating it to Luke a couple times, and then again in Kenobi's hut. So if a droid was to come in and capture this live performance and then try to market that elsewhere, people also have the ability to capture this on certain devices, but it's a lot easier if a person's standing there holding some sort of Star Wars camera, which is not going to be hidden in a pair of glasses or anything like that, because it probably would be detected by the scanner at the front door. I tell you what I would like though, that camera to record these videos. I think it would be a bit awkward to work at first, but with Star Wars technology, that's gotta look amazing. And if Grievous walked into this bar as a cyborg, I wonder if he would be allowed, or if he wouldn't be because he might have some like hidden camera in one of his mechanics. And this is actually canon. It has a Wikipedia page. It's like Reg or something like that. The recording industry of the Galactic Empire actually forbid droids being in, well, kind of, it's not exactly in these terms, but they basically forbid droids being in the same establishment with live performances. So even on places like Coruscant and even on other worlds where we see droid dedicated bars, they wouldn't have been allowed in the original bars at the time of the Empire if there was a live performance going. So there are a few exceptions. Obviously, if there isn't a live performance, I wonder if Figuring Done weren't performing, if they'd be allowed in, or because there's performances anyway, they wouldn't be in case they left some recording equipment. Anyway, that's a fun bit of Star Wars fact that we didn't know before this video, or at least I didn't know before finding it out for this video. And today we're going to be turning this into a Mando era bar, which we see in The Mandalorian isn't really all too different. The big difference is there's no longer a stage for Figuring Done and the modal nodes to perform. I'll be honest, we're going to leave the stage, but we are going to grab this jukebox from the Complete Saga. That's some good time. If you are a fan of the Complete Saga, I also have a video, I'll leave it on the end screen, building this mini kit, which we still need to print a correct colored stud for the bottom. This should be green, not red. But this is just giant Lego. It can be pulled apart, and there's actually a hidden clone band inside. How fun's that? It's a good thing there's no space for droids inside this mini kit. But we built that around Christmas time, of course, from the Complete Saga, and now the Skywalker Saga. And now we have another little build. This is a jukebox from the Complete Saga, but you all knew that if you did play the game. And instead of Figuring Dan ending up performing, we're going to put the jukebox there so that droids can still listen to a bit of music and perhaps even get up, have a little dance. We all know C-3PO loves a good dance. I've also smoothed off the rooftops for these roofs because it does look a bit more pleasing than having the little handles. You can always pop them up through the underneath, or if you are really lucky enough to have smaller fingers than I do, pop them off from the sides. But that's not the only difference we're going to make. Minifigures need to go in, and we could add, you know, Mando, Peli, and that giant ant creature in this part in the corner. But I just want to fill this thing with droids, and you have provided the most cursed CMF wave of droids, thanks to a recent short I put out where one of you's asked to see R2's head on a droideka body, and this is the first minifigure of the CMF. This thing is absolutely hilarious. I've used my custom droideka body. Instructions are up for free on Rubrickable if you did want to build the actual droideka, or even if you want to build this cursed R2oideka. This is going to be the first of 12 minifigures that we're going to add to this Mos Eisley Cantina. Who should we go with next? The next minifigures are a pairing. We're going to include them together. We've got R2 and 3PO, but if they worked out and were really built up in terms of muscle, starting off with R2, definitely into those weights, and the tattoo on the side. I really love an R2D2 minifigure, but the tattoo is just the leg pattern going up one or both of the arms. The head is built with a 2x2 tile with a Technic hole in the middle to look like some veiny neck, though I realise it just looks like if R2D2 and Freddy Fazbear had a crossover and R2 become one of those scary animatronics with all of the teeth ready to consume your child, which is pretty scary for R2D2. 3PO, however, is definitely more of a runner, so we've got the hoodie without sleeves and a pair of shorts because 3PO does his fair share of running throughout the Skywalker Saga, so definitely he's more into that cardio. Keeping on with these cursed minifigures, there is at least 3 normal ones towards the end that were my idea, but these are all coming from comments that you've left on a short, so if you can think of any more cursed droids, let us know down in the comments, and I'm sure we'll have a nice laugh. We've also got R2-D2 heads on a Buzz droid. Again, this is playing off that droideka, but because there's 2 heads on it, just makes it that more creepy, and I might have to display this one with my Anakin Eater behind me. We've got a battle droid head on R2-D2's body, which actually works pretty well in terms of the connection, but I can see why they didn't do this in Attack of the Clones, because there's no way to hold a blaster. Because we're using a battle droid head on R2, that freed up a torso and legs for General Grievous, who does look a bit hunched over and reminds me of that droid that we bought up not too long ago from the Sand Crawler, although the head is definitely propelled a bit more forward. Grievous has definitely been playing a few computer games and needs to fix his posture. What about Grievous's torso, you ask? Well, what about this C3VS, which is absolutely terrifying. This is C3PO if he were some sort of Dark Lord of the Sith. This is 3PO if he read too much of that Sith code and just adopted the whole way of life, especially with Zerg's cape, which is red on the inside and black on the outside. This is terrifying, and I actually might keep the cape for my Grievous minifigure. Alright, last of these cursed minifigures, and the cutest of the lot. A lot of these have been quite terrifying to think of, but we have a spider droid with actual minifigure legs. A spider droid, this is a micro spider droid. We definitely didn't have space for one of those giant spider droids in a CMF line, but spider droids usually have 4 legs. By giving them minifigure legs instead of the 4 brick-built legs, it actually has 8 legs and adds up to being a spider droid, which makes more sense if they have 8 legs compared to 4. But this thing looks so adorable. I don't think I could hurt this if I come up against it in battle. Mind you, if it was shooting at me, I guess that would be a different matter. Now time for my minifigures I've added. I've gone away from the cursed minifigures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I almost forgot one. Before we get to my ones, I got asked to put a wig on a gonk, which is no easy feat. But when I did it, and I also added some minifigure legs, I realized we now have a gonkess for our gonky. So if there's ever a gonk, a Star Wars story, hopefully we can get a gonk with a wig. It's completely unnecessary. But this hairpiece works so well with this gonk that it just looks like it works. I'm definitely going to be keeping this around for a future Lego mock. All right, now it's time to show off my minifigures. First off, we have my completely gold C-3PO. If you've seen my collection videos, especially regarding my minifigures, chances are you've seen this. The legs from the Force Awakens polybag, the torso from the newer minifigures, and the head from any 3PO in the last decade or so gives you a complete gold 3PO from Attack of the Clones. Second up is another minifigure you've probably seen a few times before. It's my 145 minifigure scale R2-D2 with back printing from Filoni clones. The minifigure is a bit smaller than the average R2 mech. You can see it against the one with a battle droid head and adds up to the height of the minifigures, which technically the original R2 minifigure does also, but you'd have to have him laying back, which doesn't look as good when you're trying to build certain mocks. It'll also be easier to fit that head on some of the ships as well. And last but not least, we have the EV9 bartender from The Mandalorian. We couldn't do this mock without a bartender to sit right at the front serving all of these droids. And this bartender is actually voiced by Mark Hamill himself, one of the many roles across Star Wars. Him and Warwick Davis basically would play half of these droids if they were in Star Wars. So let me know your favorite Lego Star Wars droid CMF down in the comments. And now it's time to place these around Mos Eisley. So the minifigures are in, and I've actually placed the entire Master Builder set on this turntable, this Lazy Susan, which honestly, if you're displaying it somewhere it can be accessed, I think is probably the best way to display this set. You can look at every single angle of the inside, and leaving it just open like this, you could definitely fill in that wall if it really did annoy you. But it gives you a bit more space on the interior, which I know is a struggle if you're trying to display all the minifigures that actually are around the original scene in A New Hope. The first minifigures I placed were this R2 and 3PO because they could sit at a table. And I probably should have placed them on the inside. You can see we've got the battle droid head R2 just in the little enclosed hut just in there. And that is because I completely forgot about fitting minifigures in the actual booths. I think that might be the only minifigure in any of the booths of the whole thing. Yeah, this side is just left empty, but it gives the illusion of packing out a set without actually having to fill every little corner. If there are any corners to your set, like this little booth over here, you don't have to fill them up. Just make sure there's a minifigure set out in front, and I bet most of you wouldn't have noticed had I not mentioned it. We then got the R2 Droidica over, standing at the bar ordering, as a few of these droid minifigures are. But more importantly, that jukebox works so well in that on the stage, it is sat on the stage. It does stud in very nicely. And we've got Gonkess and Beavis? Beavis? Yeah, Beavis. We've got General Beavis over, I guess not General B1verse or something like that. I'm sure you can all think of better names in the comments. We've then got the bartender from the Mandalorian, which you've probably seen in the thumbnail. This is by far one of the best droids I have built. You can see most of the pieces that go to the droid from this angle in the shot I showed you earlier. But if you would like instructions for how most of these droids go together, actually the Buzz droid is the official Lego version. You've got the Spider droid, which is basically the older Lego version with the legs attached to the giant bar element using the 1x2 clips with a single clip, and most of the other figures are pretty self-explanatory. Turning it around to see the other side now, we've got R2 and 3PO minifig scale and 3PO fully golden, showing off all his shiny parts coming through where they originally would be stopped by this scanner, which I really do like the idea of setting a magnet to the side and having it pull the figures, but I don't own any magnets strong enough. We have the Buzz droid with the R2 heads, ordering again a drink at the bar. That one is actually being served. We have the Spider droid waiting patiently for its turn. That thing is massive compared to, like minifigure scale. That thing's massive, very creepy, using 8 human legs. And then we've got our 3Vius over at the side, patiently waiting, but I feel like ready to just burn down the entire cantina if their drink doesn't arrive in time. Definitely, there's some evil behind those eyes. Imagine the red-eyed 3PO head on Grievous's body. When I pick up the Dark Falcon later this year, that's definitely something that I've got to do. Someone remind me to do that, but as you can see, the entire cantina is filled with droids. Wuha would absolutely not have a blast in this cantina, but now droids are indeed served, and I must say these droids look pretty happy to be here. I hope you enjoy these wacky videos where we just take some minifigures, mash them together, and create quite a simple, straightforward mock just by adding some weird minifigures to the cantina. We've made it look a bit more interesting than it did empty, but I am about to break this down for another mock. Of course, like I say, sets don't last very long here on the channel, so stay tuned for that, and may the bricks be with you always.